Greetings from South Korea. I am Arirang News AI anchor. Here is the news making headlines today. The U.S. Federal Reserve has cut its benchmark interest rate by 0.25 percentage points, bringing the rate to its lowest level in more than 3 years. It announced on Wednesday that Federal Open Market Committee had lowered the federal funds rate from the previous 3.75 to 4% range to 3.5 to 3.75%. The Fed's decision marks the third consecutive rate cut since September, lowering the rate by a total of 0.75 percentage points this year. It cited an uncertain economy, including a slowdown in the employment growth rate as well as rising inflation. As the U.S. benchmark rate fell to 3.75% following the Fed's latest decision, the rate gap with South Korea has narrowed to 1.25 percentage points, based on the upper limit of the U.S. rate range. The U.S. House of Representatives has passed the annual defense policy bill for the next fiscal year, which restricts the Trump administration from unilaterally reducing the size of U.S. forces in Korea. The U.S. National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, for the fiscal year 2026, approved on Wednesday local time, reportedly includes that the authorized budget may not be used to reduce the number of U.S. troops stationed in South Korea below the current level of 28,500. It also specifically says funds may not be used to complete the transfer of wartime operational control between South Korea and the U.S. in a manner that deviates from the mutually agreed-upon plan. Having passed the House, the bill will take effect once it passes the Senate and is signed by President Donald Trump. A senior South Korean diplomat says she will urge the United States to move quickly on a new agreement that would allow Korea to enrich uranium and reprocess spent nuclear fuel for peaceful purposes. Second Vice Foreign Minister Kim Jin-na made the comments as she arrived in Washington on Wednesday for the 10th Senior Economic Dialogue with the U.S. Undersecretary of State for Economic Affairs Jacob Hellberg. Kim said that since both sides have already reached an understanding on enrichment and reprocessing, she will push for the agreement to be implemented without delay. Last month, the Trump administration signaled support for a process that could lead to South Korea's civil uranium enrichment and spent fuel reprocessing. South Korea is currently barred from both activities under its nuclear cooperation pact with the U.S. South Korea's Minister of Oceans and Fisheries has resigned following allegations that he received bribes from the Unification Church. Following a trip to the U.S. to promote Korea's bid to host the UN Ocean Conference on Thursday, John told reporters that the accusations are absurd and completely unfounded. He also said that the claims are based on false information, and it is appropriate to resign for the benefit of the Lee Jae-myung administration and the ministry. The presidential office says President Lee will accept his resignation. It said earlier that the government's stance on responding firmly to such allegations remains unchanged regardless of political affiliation. John allegedly received cash and valuables from the Unification Church in return for a request to promote the construction of an undersea tunnel between Korea and Japan. In other news, U.S. President Donald Trump has said American forces have seized an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela as tensions escalate between Trump and Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. The U.S. Coast Guard, supported by the Navy, carried out the seizure on Wednesday with personnel transported by helicopter from the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier. A day earlier, U.S. fighter jets flew over the Gulf of Venezuela in their closest pass to the country's airspace during the current pressure campaign against Maduro. It remains unclear who owns the tanker or what flag it was sailing under. Trump said the U.S. would keep the oil aboard. That is all from me today. Thank you for watching.